I would argue that at this point Ubisoft can only go up, not only because their stock price is the lowest it has ever been in the last 5 years, but also because all their franchises have a ton of potential that is not being utilized right now. Yeah, the Ubisoft Forward, apart from the AC part, was really weak, so in this video I mostly want to look at the extra insights we got after that event regarding Ubisoft's strategy moving forward. I think we're about to enter a new phase, and it's really interesting because they got big plans for Far Cry, but we don't know a lot about that yet. So really a ton to go over. Of course, if you like these big rumor and news roundup videos, then leaving a like would really help me out, and subscribe because every Sunday I post a big video like this. But first, let's get rid of these massive wallets you carry around for no reason, because now we got a Rich wallet, which is way sleeker and slimmer while you still carry all your essentials. You can fit up to 12 cards in the very useful and durable design, with the wallet also being smaller if you carry less. You can still have cash on the back with a strap or a clip. Rich has over 50,000 5-star reviews, a free return policy within 45 days, so you can get your money back if you want. Like, this is really the best upgrade for you or a perfect gift for someone you know. I can't go back now. I of course got the red one, but there are over 40 colors and styles to choose from, so totally check out Rich Wallet via the special link in the video description and get a 10% discount when you do so. And you also have a chance to win a Bronco with every dollar spent before September 30th, or you can also choose to get the cash if you want, if you win. The winner will be announced in October. So I want to thank Rich Wallet for sponsoring the video. Now let's get back into it. I think the biggest non-Assassin's Creed reveal at the Ubisoft Forward event was Heartland. Like, sure, we did not see a lot, and we also knew that this free-to-play Division game was coming, but the small bits of gameplay we saw of the more small town and a lush setting totally got me interested. It should have PvE only modes, and also modes where you can fight other players, have to extract items before getting killed. If done well, I could totally see this being the first successful Ubisoft free-to-play initiative. Now, speaking of Division PvP, of course the Dark Zone is the most well-known area in that game, and we now saw the mobile version of that. The graphics continue to look impressive for an Android and iOS title. But yeah, mobile games are also known for their pay-to-win elements, and that's of course not going to work in the Dark Zone, so fingers crossed that they won't do that here. But all these Division projects were part of a roadmap that was showed earlier, which also included the Netflix movie and other transmedia stuff, and we got an update as well, where we also see the extra support for Division 2 that has now been confirmed for 2023 as well. And really, this is a similar plan to Assassin's Creed that of course also recently got its roadmap with a mobile game and a Netflix show next to the big mainline titles. Like, this is really the tactic for Ubisoft going forward. And this goes hand in hand with their other new approach, where Ubisoft wants to make more focused games rather than have one game do everything. This is a quote from the new vice president of editorial at Ubisoft, who's almost 1 year at the company now and basically changing how they approach each project. And as we discussed before, the upcoming Assassin's Creed games are a great example of this, with Mirage being more for the old school fans, codename Red for the fans of Origins, Odyssey and Valhalla, and with Hexe they want to create something completely different. Are you more into multiplayer games? Well, they're doing a separate multiplayer project as well. And are you a mobile player? Well, there's something for you too. It's not that long ago that we would see many Ubisoft game reveals and be like, who's the target audience for this? Like, I don't know anyone that wanted a Ghost Recon Battle Royale first-person shooter, but they just did it. Likely because many publishers were seeing a lot of success in the genre, not because it really made sense for the Ghost Recon series. But now Ubisoft did cancel that game called Frontline, just like the Splinter Cell VR game and 2 other unannounced projects. They also dropped the Tom Clancy name from XDeviant because there was nothing espionage about this at all. Now XDeviant just seems to be focused on being a free alternative to Call of Duty, which is a very clear target. So it really feels that Ubisoft is trying to move on from the things that are still haunting them from the past, like Skull and Bones, that after 8 years of development, they're finally getting over with on November 8th. It just kind of feels that way. Seems like they're restarting Beyond Good and Evil 2 as they just got a lead writer. We also learned that the game is still many years away, but it is alive as reported by Tom Henderson. So hopefully it will get more of its own identity again compared to the short dev footage we got some years ago that basically looks like every other open world Ubisoft game. And even though the Prince of Persia Sands of Time trophies already appeared online, which is kinda crazy, we know that they are completely redoing that game as well at Ubisoft Montreal to hopefully make it way more impressive. So it really seems that Ubisoft got a clean slate in 2023 by either having released or having a direction for their long in development games and a clear focus audience, either single player or multiplayer, for their newer titles, with the top strategy being that they want to double down on their biggest franchises. One of the interesting tidbits we learned after the showcase was that Assassin's Creed is one of the 3 IP alongside Far Cry and Tom Clancy the publisher intends to turn into an iconic media franchise, with the aim to have this trio delivering $2 billion in annual revenues within 5 years. Which is pretty wild. For comparison, last financial year, so from April 2021 until March 2022, Assassin's Creed, Far Cry and Rainbow Six generated over 300 million net bookings each, so that is more than 900 million, let's say 1 billion. But this was with the launch of Far Cry 6, 3 major expansions for Valhalla, with also Season Pass money allocated here that they got before the launch of the game, the Siege post-launch, and the release of Extraction. And their plan is to double that. Like, sure, we know how they want to do it for Assassin's Creed. Codename Red is of course going to do pretty well, but that's just one piece of the puzzle. I went more in depth on Assassin's Creed Infinity, for example, and the big changes coming to the franchise in a previous video. I will link to that at the end of this one. Now, it's easy to see what's happening with Tom Clancy. Rainbow Six Siege continues to do well and has a mobile game they're testing right now. Ghost Recon has a new mainline game in the works. We of course already went over The Division. And then we reach the third pillar, Far Cry. It's getting the same treatment, but nothing has been announced for the franchise yet. We did hear rumblings from Jason Schreier, who said in June last year that Far Cry 7 could go in a radically different direction, with Steven Totillo hearing something similar, with his source saying that the company was exploring a more online-oriented approach for a sequel. Like, it's clear that they need to evolve, and you could argue that Far Cry 6 already had to bring more innovation to the series, as it mostly used the same blueprint, animal companions, and gameplay structure. I still really enjoyed it. It's totally one of my favorite Far Cry games, but it was totally a title you've already played before. At one point, we went from Syndicate to Origins, and we need a reinvention like that for Far Cry, and the damage numbers and RPG elements in New Dawn were not it. 59% of the 28,000 people that voted in my Far Cry 6 poll said that they only played single player. Like, I think having a single player only Far Cry with more a focus on the story, good characters and key moments that made Far Cry 3 so great is the way to go. And I know people like the arcade mode that we had in previous titles as well, like have that be a separate multiplayer only service. If you followed the channel for a while, then you are likely aware of the QR code in Far Cry 6 that teased a PvP type game. While not confirmed, this could actually have been the mobile Wild Arena Survivors game, which just got a launch trailer that looks a lot like Far Cry. With a source to mobilegamer.biz noting that it was an abandoned Far Cry spin-off. The game itself is completely different though. It's a character-based battle royale that plays like a MOBA. So apart from the trailer, no other official Ubisoft account mentioned the title. It's probably just a test bed right now. It feels again as a game stuck in Ubisoft's old era. Like, I hope they know better now that a Far Cry battle royale spin-off is not something we want. Like, Far Cry 6 was mostly made by a different team in Toronto, so they've really been thinking and working on the next Far Cry game for more than 3 years, as New Dawn released in February 2019. But still though, in April, Kotaku reported that the next Far Cry, Ghost Recon and full-fledged Assassin's Creed games remain further out than Ubisoft had previously planned. Let's not forget that the actor behind one recorded lines for something Far Cry related in June of this year, while the Far Cry 6 support was already over. Like, I can see that fast game that I discussed before be what Mirage is for AC, just a smaller, more linear title before the start of the real next chapter with Far Cry 7. And yes, I agree with there being online-oriented rumors, maybe the single-player focus is not real for Far Cry 7, but with Assassin's Creed, Ubisoft is making their biggest investment in single-player ever, while multiplayer will be completely separate from the single-player adventures. So I would not rule out the same for Far Cry. And we of course know about other big Ubisoft games next to these three pillars, like there's a Star Wars game in the works. Immortals is probably getting a sequel because we already got a leaked look at it. I would not be surprised if we saw that game next year. And of course, Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora, with James Cameron saying that he was very excited by what Ubisoft is doing. It is of course delayed though, and I already kind of predicted this, but I think it's not coming in 2023, but actually 2024, because that's also when the third movie is coming out. This has now also been noted by The Real Insider, who got many leaks correct in the past, and they say that it will have less checkboxes and more varied missions, moving away from the standard Ubisoft formula. Expected to release in 2024. Avatar always seemed like the first real next-gen open-world Ubisoft game. Like, I'm really curious what the next step is for their familiar formula, because they really gotta step it up, of course. And it's 100% fair to be skeptical, like they really gotta prove themselves. But with Skull and Bones, I see an old Ubisoft. I see a Ubisoft that is out of touch. While looking at the Assassin's Creed Showcase, I see them like really understanding their audience, making sure there's still single player stuff, while having a completely separate team doing multiplayer. So they're basically doing what works, but expand on the franchise in new ways. I'm like optimistic. I think it's good to be optimistic, but of course we will have to wait and see. Curious to hear your takes, of course, in the comments down below. Totally check out that video going in depth on the future of Assassin's Creed in particular by clicking on the screen. A like on the video would really help me out. Subscribe for everything on Ubisoft, Far Cry, AC, all that stuff, and I will speak to you soon. Goodbye.